Was Adam really the first human? The Bible may be hiding a secret few people talk about, a truth that could change how we understand the origins of humanity. Before humans were created, other beings had already existed, the sons of God. Who were they, and why has their existence been buried in silence for thousands of years? The sons of God, who were they? We often hear that Adam was the first human, the origin of mankind. But the Bible, when read carefully, reveals a shocking detail: the existence of other beings called the sons of God, who appeared before humans were shaped from dust. So, who were they really? And why has this question been forgotten for centuries, or worse, deliberately ignored? The concept of the sons of God is not unfamiliar to those who study the Old Testament. In Genesis and Job, they are mentioned as sentient beings who witnessed the act of creation and even interacted with the human world. Some scholars suggest they were angels, spiritual beings serving God, but others offer a bolder view, that they were a divine race existing before Adam, whose appearance opened another chapter, a prehistory before history. Why is this topic so rarely taught in churches? Is it too difficult to understand? Or does it challenge traditional theological structures? It's hard to say what pushed the existence of the sons of God into the dark corners of religious memory. But clearly, if they were already there before Adam was created, an unavoidable question arises. Was Adam really the first human? Or are we merely a continuation of a much older tale, a story cut out from the official record? From my personal perspective, the existence of the sons of God does not negate Adam's role, but rather adds depth to the origin narrative. They are like silent witnesses to a divine plan beyond human comprehension. Questioning their role does not weaken faith, but reflects a maturing faith, one that accepts some sacred truths remain unrevealed. And who knows, maybe in seeking these forgotten matters, we draw closer to the truth. Witnesses of the beginning, spiritual beings who watched the birth of the universe. Amid a dramatic dialogue in the book of Job, God asks a stunning question. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Job 38:14. This is not just a gentle rebuke, but a profound revelation. This verse hints at a mysterious detail, that the sons of God were present before the material world came into being. They did not merely exist. They rejoiced and celebrated the act of creation, like the universe's very first witnesses. So, what was their true role? Were they merely spectators in a cosmic drama directed by God, or part of a divine team co-creating with Him? Some scholars suggest they were angels, but the imagery in Job seems to show more. Beings with awareness, emotion, and reactions to creation, indicating a form of spiritual existence with depth and responsibility. If they witnessed the first appearance of earth, water, and light, did they also partake in managing the universe's operations? Were they spiritual overseers assigned to maintain order before humanity emerged? This makes us rethink the origin story. Perhaps Adam's creation was not the opening act, but just one part of a greater divine plan, with the sons of God as its earliest witnesses and partners. My personal view is this: their presence not only confirms a living universe before humans, but also reflects the depth of creation's design, where humanity is not the only centerpiece, but part of an eternal symphony of creation. And in that sacred symphony, the sons of God may be the first voices, echoing from the dawn of time. A hidden secret between the pages of Scripture, a truth few dare to face. One of the most surprising elements for Bible readers is the appearance of the sons of God, strange beings clearly mentioned in various passages, from Genesis to Job. Yet in most modern teachings, this topic is quickly skimmed over, if not entirely avoided. Why is that? Is it too mysterious for people to understand? Or does it risk shaking theological frameworks that have stood for centuries? It's hard not to question. If Scripture openly refers to them, why is there no place for them in today's theology? Perhaps it's because their existence raises many uncomfortable questions about the origin of humanity, about Adam's true role, and whether our history really began as we've been told. Is this a sacred knowledge humanity was not meant to know? Or simply a concept that doesn't fit within modern belief systems? Systems that prefer clear, linear, and manageable interpretations. Maybe out of fear of disrupting doctrine, people have chosen to lock away these hard-to-explain parts rather than start an honest and deep conversation. From my personal perspective, I don't see this as a taboo, but rather an invitation, a call for seekers to step outside the safety of traditional belief and confront the deeper, more mysterious aspects of God's plan. The mention of the sons of God in the Bible is no coincidence but a clue, a door to layers of truth covered by time's dust and human fear. The secret is not that God hides things from us, but whether we're willing to see and enter the depths of what He has shown from the very beginning. 3 major theories about the identity of the sons of God. Although they appear in several biblical passages, the true identity of the sons of God remains a mystery that has challenged theologians for thousands of years. In the quest to decode it, 3 main theories have emerged, each offering a distinct interpretation of Scripture and opening deeper meaning about the origins of humanity and the universe. Theory 1. They are fallen angels, the watchers from the heavenly realms. This is the most widely accepted view, especially supported by ancient texts like Job 38:7 and the Book of Enoch, a controversial yet influential apocryphal work. In it, angels, or watchers, are said to have left their posts in heaven, came to earth, married human women, and gave rise to a hybrid race, the Nephilim giants, who spread terror before Noah's time. This theory paints a picture of a celestial rebellion, where divine power was misused, leaving vast consequences for the material world. Could the presence of the sons of God be the origin of chaos described in the Great Floods, and the reason God had to restore cosmic order? Theory 2. They are pre-existent souls, existing before physical bodies. Some early Jewish and Christian theological schools offered a less-known view in modern churches, that souls existed before being incarnated into human bodies. In Jeremiah 1:5, God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." This statement is not just about God's omniscience, but implies that a soul can have life and knowledge even before having a body. If true, then the sons of God could be ancient souls created long ago, carrying divine missions, and only later entering the material world, or perhaps never incarnating, continuing as independent spiritual beings. Theory 3. They are remnants of an ancient civilization, according to the gap theory. A bolder view comes from interpreting Genesis 2. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. Many scholars suggest this hints at a vast time gap between verse 1 and verse 2, an unrecorded era when a pre-Adamic civilization once existed but was destroyed. In this view, the sons of God could be survivors from that earlier time, a period erased by judgment or celestial war, now remembered only vaguely as silent witnesses to a forgotten world. Could they have once ruled, learned, and created, only to vanish, leaving behind scattered myths in ancient cultures like Sumer, Egypt, or Atlantis? From my perspective, All three theories have value in sparking curiosity and guiding readers toward deeper layers of faith. Perhaps the truth isn't fully contained in any one theory, but in a refined blend of all these fragments. And only when we dare to question, explore, and accept that the Bible is not as simple as we once thought, can we begin to touch the sacred depth of the beginning. After Adam appeared, what happened to the sons of God? If the sons of God truly existed before Adam was formed, as many Bible passages subtly suggest, then one inevitable question arises. Where did they go? What happened to them when mankind stepped onto the main stage of history? Did Adam's arrival mark a turning point, where humans became the center of creation, and the former beings gradually faded into the background, like forgotten supporting characters in a new play? Or was the situation more complex, with some among them resisting God's plan, choosing their own path, or even rebelling? The Book of Enoch clearly describes a group of angels, the Watchers, who disobeyed heavenly commands and instead descended to humanity, taking women as wives and giving birth to a hybrid race, the Nephilim. If this is part of the truth, then this rebellion wasn't just rule-breaking. It was an act of overstepping divine bounds, interfering with humanity's development in a way not intended by God. The result? A string of spiritual tragedies, chaos, corruption, and ultimately the Great Flood as a means of resetting order. However, there is another possibility, that most of the sons of God still exist, hidden, continuing their role as watchers, protectors, or indirect influencers of human history. They may be silent witnesses, beings who only appear during major upheavals, like angels in dreams, visions, or the mysterious encounters recorded throughout time. From my perspective, their presence or absence is not random, but part of a divine order that humanity, with limited perception, cannot fully grasp. Some may have truly been removed from the plan due to disobedience, but others may still be among us, in ways only spiritual eyes can see. The question isn't just where did they go, but also, are we ignoring their presence simply because we've forgotten how to perceive a world more layered than the physical one? The ancient rebellion. Was it only about Lucifer? When the heavenly fall is mentioned, most believers immediately think of Lucifer, the radiant angel once near God's throne, who was cast down like lightning due to pride. This story is vividly portrayed in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, passages describing a being who shined like the morning star, but lifted himself to be equal with the Most High. But here's the thought-provoking part. Was that rebellion really about just one being, Lucifer? Or was it merely the surface of a much larger crisis, where many sons of God also chose the path of defiance? Non-canonical texts like the Book of Enoch and many ancient traditions in Judaism and early Christianity speak of a group of fallen angels, not just one. These beings, often called Watchers, crossed forbidden boundaries, entered the human world, and disrupted the divine plan. They didn't simply make mistakes. They deliberately opposed God through action, knowledge, and a thirst for power. If this theory is true, Lucifer wasn't the only rebel, but the leader of a divine-scale uprising whose consequences echoed into the material world, seen in the presence of Nephilim, lost civilizations, and mysteries yet to be unraveled by mankind. From my perspective, this story isn't just a lesson in pride, but a warning about free will. Even in heaven, radiant beings had choices, and when that freedom was abused, the result was the collapse of an entire order. This rebellion didn't affect only them. It reached humanity, history, and perhaps even the destiny of the universe as we know it today. What matters is this. We are in a story that hasn't ended, where past events still echo in the present, and may continue to shape the future in ways we never expected. Genesis 6, a forbidden covenant between heaven and humanity. In a brief but weighty verse in Genesis 6:2, an event takes place that shook both heaven and earth. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. At first glance, this seems like a mere crossing of boundaries between two kinds of beings. But in truth, it was a grave violation, a covenant broken, as heavenly entities intervened in humanity's order in ways not authorized by God. The result of this act was the birth of the Nephilim, beings described in Scripture as mighty men of old, men of renown. However, according to the Book of Enoch, a non-canonical text deeply influential in Jewish and early Christian tradition, the Nephilim were not just legendary heroes, but supernatural creatures of violence and chaos, disrupting the balance of the world. The union between angels and human women did more than break divine law. It opened a dark chapter in spiritual history. It raises a question. Why did the sons of God, beings of knowledge and high rank, choose to follow personal desires instead of obeying the divine plan? Was it curiosity, lust, or part of a greater scheme to alter the structure of power in the universe? From my perspective, this is not just an ancient tale, but a symbol of boundaries between power and responsibility, between freedom and order, between the divine and the mortal. When those limits are crossed, the result isn't merely the bound of a few beings, but a rupture spreading through creation's design, leading to the Great Flood, and possibly explaining why the sons of God were imprisoned in the deep, as the Book of Enoch suggests. The covenant between heaven and earth was broken, not only by wrongdoing, but by the union of power and desire, a force that always brings unforeseen consequences. And maybe that's the lasting lesson for modern humans. Not everything that is possible should become reality. The Great Flood, heaven's cosmic purification. When people mention the Great Flood in Genesis, they often see it as punishment for mankind's overflowing sins. But if we look closely at Genesis 6:4, a more profound truth appears. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the mighty men of old men of renown. It was not only punishment. The Great Flood was also a cosmic cleansing, a divine effort to erase the traces of a rebellion that distorted the entire plan of creation. The Nephilim hybrids, beings that didn't belong to the original order, were not only a consequence of disobedience, but a threat to the balance between heaven and earth. According to Jewish tradition and the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim not only possessed superhuman strength, but also spread violence, bloodshed, and misused knowledge among mankind. What had been divinely granted to humanity was twisted by the whims of the fallen beings. In the Creator's eyes, that world was no longer worth continuing. It needed to be wiped clean, like a painter erasing a flawed canvas to start anew. Therefore, the Great Flood is not just a story about Noah's survival, but a total removal of what had gone astray, a decisive act to restore the sacred order that had been overturned. The choice of Noah, the only righteous man in his generation, was not just for his faith, but, according to some scholars, because his bloodline was untainted by the Nephilim. From my perspective, the Great Flood was not simply a disaster, but a milestone in the ongoing battle between obedience and rebellion, between light and darkness. Seen this way, the story still echoes today. Every generation faces its own Nephilim, distortions, boundless ambition, and choices that defy divine wisdom. And maybe the cleansing our world needs today is not a physical flood, but a wave of spiritual awakening, to remind us where the line lies between what is possible and what is right. Chains in the darkness, a divine sentence for the rebels. If there is a destiny for those beings who once challenged the authority of heaven, Scripture does not remain silent about it. In 2 Peter 2:4, the apostle writes, "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment." Similarly, Jude 1:6 speaks of angels who did not keep their proper domain but left their own abode, and so were bound in eternal chains in darkness until the final judgment. These words pull back the curtain slightly, revealing the grim fate of the rebellious sons of God. They were not merely cast out of heaven, they were bound in darkness, far from eternal light, stripped of freedom, serving as a solemn reminder of the irreversible consequences of pride and disobedience. This is no symbolic punishment. It is a divine sentence recorded within the layers of the spiritual realm. In the tradition of the Book of Enoch, the rebellious angels, especially the Watchers, were imprisoned in Tartarus, a deep abyss beneath even hell, a place where no light can reach. This was not just physical confinement, but complete separation from the living one, the source of being and glory. From my perspective, this image is not merely a warning to angels, but to humanity as well. We too carry free will, just like them. And that very freedom, if not paired with obedience, can lead to eternal loss. These chains in darkness are not only present in some other dimension, they symbolize the cost the soul must pay when separated from the divine order. In the end, perhaps what makes this punishment most terrifying is not the darkness, but the total absence of hope. And in eternity, that is the most dreadful abyss of all. Did they disappear, or are they still influencing the world today? We often think the stories of the sons of God, the fallen angels and ancient divine beings, belong only to the distant spiritual past. But the Bible doesn't let us close that book so easily. In Daniel 10:13, the prophet shares a startling event. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. This is not metaphor. It's a haunting statement that above nations and human kingdoms, invisible powers, divine entities, still influence the course of history. The king of Persia, mentioned here, was not an earthly ruler, but a spiritual force reigning behind the material veil. That means the power structures we see are only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, spiritual princes, good or evil, continue to clash, affecting wars, politics, and the fate of nations. If the sons of God once held power and position in the divine order, then even after the rebellion, not all were imprisoned. Some may still be active, no longer under God's command, but pursuing their own agenda of manipulation and deviation. From my perspective, I believe the major events of human history, from the rise of empires to mysterious wars, are never purely human in origin. Behind each empire, leader, or global decision, there may still be unseen hands, supernatural forces quietly steering history in directions beyond our understanding. The question is not, do they still exist? But rather, are we discerning enough to recognize that they're still at work, even in our seemingly secular, scientific modern world? We have explored a profound mystery. The sons of God may be angels, pre-existent souls, or beings from a wiped-out creation. Some rebelled, mated with humans, and the result was the Great Flood. Yet their influence may still endure. The final question: were humans created to replace them? And are we living within a war we don't even realize we're part of?